glamorous rock star ever.
Barbie and the rockers, dressed so cool she always makes me sing. A rock star of your wildest dreams.
Hello doll fans, my name is Joey and welcome back to Beauty Inside a Box. Today we are going to be talking about one of the biggest feuds in doll industry history. And no, I'm not talking about Bratz versus Barbie, although I do plan on making a video about that feud at some point. Today we are talking about Barbie and the Rockers vs Jem and the Holograms. A battle of the bands, if you will. Two titans of the toy industry, Mattel vs Hasbro, went head to head in the mid-80s with their pop star themed doll lines. And we're going to go into great detail to talk about some of the mischievous, underhanded tactics that Mattel used to bring down Barbie's competition. If you love dolls as much as I do, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and check me out on Instagram and TikTok. But anyway, let's talk about one of the biggest feuds of the 1980s. Nothing quite exemplifies over-the-top, colourful 80s glam quite like Jem and the Holograms. But how did Jem and the Holograms come to be? Well, in the early 80s, Hasbro was having a lot of success with their boy-centric doll brands like G.I. Joe and Transformers, and they wanted to make something similar that was aimed at girls. But I'm not sure Hasbro quite understood what they were getting themselves into going head-to-head with the unshakable heavyweight champion of the fashion doll industry, Barbie. Mattel had, of course, revolutionized the fashion doll industry in 1959 when they released Barbie. And Barbie has boasted her dominance over the industry ever since. In the early 80s, designer Bill Sanders came up with the idea of a doll line that could appeal to girls who still wanted to play with dolls, who still loved pink, but also wanted to be MTV stars, like Madonna or Cyndi Lauper. Like I said, Hasbro also wanted to mimic the success they had had with their boy franchises by creating very similar marketing strategies. So they hired one of the writers from G.I. Joe, Christy Marks, to create a story for their new pop star doll line. The Japanese studio Toei was hired to animate a series for the new doll line. And thus, Jem was born. Well, sort of. Originally, Jem was going to be named M. This was to tie in with the whole MTV theme. Jerrica was going to be Misty, and then they changed the name to Morgan. And then they changed the name altogether when Hasbro discovered that they couldn't copyright a letter. So M became Jem, and Morgan became Jerrica. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. The story of Jem and the Holograms goes like this. Jem is the secret pop star alias of Jerrica Benton. It's kind of like a prototype Hannah Montana. Jerrica inherits half of the Starlight Music record label from her father when he D-words. Starlight Music supports the Starlight Foundation, which funds a foster home for girls. Jerrica finds a supercomputer her father built in secret called Synergy, and with the help of Synergy's hologram projections, Jerrica takes on the identity of the glamorous, over-the-top, pink-haired lead singer, Jem. Jem and her band of sisters work hard to regain control of their music label. A music label which is constantly trying to be taken over by her father's corrupt associate, Eric Raymond. Eric Raymond also has an evil rival band working for him called the Misfits. And that's pretty much just touching the surface of all the story elements and lore which goes into Jem and the Holograms. But from just that brief synopsis, you can see how many opportunities there are for dolls in this storyline. Jem and the Holograms was kind of ahead of its time because it was written by an all-female writing team, and for a short while, Jem and the Holograms actually beat out all of the male-orientated cartoon shows in the ratings. The show was successful enough that they made 65 episodes across 3 series and over 150 original songs. Yes, that's right, of course, the show had multiple songs and multiple music video style moments in every episode. And lots of the dolls would come with a cassette which included some of the songs from the TV show. I'm not sure if this is true, but I remember hearing somewhere that if the official charts recognized cassettes and albums that were sold with dolls, which they obviously don't, then Jem and the Holograms would have been one of the highest selling recording artists of the 80s. The cartoon came out in October 1985, several months before the dolls were ready to be released in spring of 1986. I assume that Hasbro was using the cartoon and this time period to build up hype for the dolls before they were released, but they mistakenly gave Mattel more time to retaliate. I can just imagine the Mattel designers up in their evil lair plotting their next attack. Lo and behold, at the beginning of 1986, the Barbie and the Rockers dolls were released, beating Gem and the Holograms to the punch. This meant that most casual shoppers assumed that Gem had copied Barbie. At the time, both Hasbro and Mattel insisted that they hadn't copied each other, but in the Netflix documentary series, The Toys That Made Us, which, by the way, if you haven't watched, you should definitely watch. It's really, really good. They have a whole episode all about Barbie, which I have watched several times. It's fascinating. But anyway, in this documentary series, the former Mattel Vice President of Barbie, Judy Shackelford, and the former CEO, Jill Barad, had quite a different account of events. Judy had apparently assembled a team to find out information about competitors and their future products. She called this team the Pink Berets. Judy said that when she found out that Hasbro was planning to release a doll to compete with Barbie, she was furious. And she set her team of Pink Berets to work. About a week later, she got a call from someone in sales and they said, "She's a rock star." I find it interesting though, because in the documentary, apparently this was the only information that Judy was given about Hasbro's new doll line, that she's a rock star.
And he says, "She's a rock star." I said, "That's all I need to know."
But I suspect Judy somehow got some more information about the doll line, because the Barbie and the Rockers line have so many suspicious similarities to the Gem and the Holograms line. But we'll talk more about the dolls in just a moment. Judy called in a war council and they decided that they were going to turn Barbie into a rock star, and they were determined to beat Hasbro to store shelves. In the documentary, Jill explains that it normally takes about 18 months to develop and release a doll, but they planned to have Barbie and the Rockers ready to ship in just 4 months. So they pulled together resources, materials, fabrics, and molds that they already had, and they created Barbie and the Rockers just in time to beat Gem and the Holograms to market. I did a little bit of a deep dive and looked back through some of the dolls that Barbie made in the early 80s to see if I could find any materials that were then used to create Barbie and the Rockers. And I made this little diagram to show where I think some of the materials for the Barbie doll might have come from. What do you think? Some of these materials look incredibly similar. Also, Judy is truly an evil genius. Just look at the glee in her face when she's describing beating Hasbro nearly 40 years ago.
The whole world thought they copied us. It was wonderful.
I'm actually scared. The Gem dolls were also more expensive than the Barbie dolls, so they really didn't stand a chance. Now, let's talk about the Gem and the Hologram dolls, and also talk about some of the similarities between them and Barbie and the Rockers. The first release of Gem dolls were comprised of 8 different dolls that were 12.5 inches tall, which is about an inch taller than your regular Barbie doll. Like I said before, each doll came with a cassette, apart from the Gem/Jerrica doll. Gem instead came with a second outfit that she could use as a disguise when she's being Jerrica. And I just want to say, I really, really want this doll. The Gem and the Holograms dolls are incredibly, incredibly rare. It's really hard to find them in box online, and when you do find them, they're normally incredibly expensive, but I love these dolls. Like I said before, they are so 80s. I love the big pink hair. I love the shiny metallic materials. Iconic. Kimber was Jerrica's red-headed sister, and she played the keyboard. She also wrote the music for the band. Aja and Shayna were Gem and Kimber's adopted sisters. Aja was an Asian American guitarist, and Shayna was an African American drummer. They also made a doll of Jerrica's boyfriend, Rio. And they also made 3 dolls of the rival band, the Misfits. And I love these outfits. I love these outfits. They're kind of giving the Flintstones. Okay, now that we spoke about the first wave of gem dolls, let's talk about how Mattel ripped off Hasbro. I have to say, the combination of the band members is suspiciously similar. First of all, we have Barbie, and she has a very similar colour palette to Gem, both of them using a lot of pink and silver. I actually have some Barbie and the Rockers dolls, but I don't have them here in my flat, unfortunately, but I have filmed a video where I unbox one of them in the past, so if you want to watch that video, I'll put a link on the screen and in the description so you can watch it later. Diva and Kimber are also pretty similar. Both of them have red hair. And also, it's important to note that this was the first time that Barbie had made a red-headed doll since the 1960s. Rio from the Gem and the Holograms line looks like he's maybe meant to be Hispanic, and Derek from the Barbie and the Rockers line, also the only male character in the doll line, has a very similar skin colour and is wearing quite a similar outfit. Dana and Aja are both Asian American, and Dee Dee and Shayna are both African American with big curly hair. Now, of course, all these similarities could just be a coincidence, but I definitely think that the similarities between the lineup of dolls and their clothing is kind of undeniable. Mattel even released a direct-to-video animated Barbie and the Rockers movie with a very similar animation style to Gem and the Holograms. And remember that at the time, Barbie had never made any animated content before, so this was very unusual. In 1987, a new wave of Gem dolls were released, including a couple new characters. The new characters included Rhea, who was a new band member for the Holograms, Synergy, who was like the kind of physical embodiment of the supercomputer. There were 2 new team members, which were just named Video and Dance. Interesting. Clash and Jetta were the 2 new members of the Misfits. And there were 3 Starlight Girl dolls, who were the younger fans of Gem and the Holograms. They also released the original band members in brand new outfits, and a couple new Gem dolls with different styling gimmicks. Hasbro also released dolls of Gem and Rio dressed all in gold, and I thought it was interesting that Mattel brought out dolls of Barbie and Ken around the same time, dressed almost entirely in silver. Okay, maybe that one's a bit of a reach, but you have to admit they have similar vibes, these 2 doll sets. Hasbro brought out a stage play set in the shape of a giant piano, and Mattel brought out a stage play set in the shape of a giant guitar. Coincidence. The Gem and the Holograms series continued to air until May of 1988, but the doll line was sadly cancelled. Barbie had beaten Gem and the Holograms. Some new Gem and the Holograms dolls were teased in the 1988 pre-Toy Fair catalogue, but they were sadly never released because the line was discontinued before they could go into production. These dolls included a Rockin' Romance Gem and an American Beauty Gem. I would love to own these dolls. But the battle wasn't over just yet, because Hasbro created Maxi to replace Gem in 1988. Maxi also had her own TV series, which was called Maxi's World, very similar to the Gem and the Hologram series. Hasbro believed that people saw Barbie as older, you know, like in her mid to late 20s, and so they believed there was a space in the market for a younger teen doll. Interest in teen culture was at an all-time high in the 80s as well, so they tried to fill this hole in the market with Maxi. Hasbro spent $7 million on marketing the doll. That's an estimated 70% of their total marketing budget for 1988. But Mattel hit back again, making their own teenage doll, Teen Looks Jazzy, who was supposed to be the teen cousin of Barbie. Interestingly enough, Jazzy's boyfriend, Dude, used the same face mold as Derek, who was created for the Barbie and the Rockers line. It's kind of like Mattel was trying to send a message to Hasbro. Maxi is sadly mostly forgotten about, but people still hold pretty fond memories of Gem and the Holograms. Gem even had a collector line of dolls released by Integrity Toys in 2012, and they seem to have been pretty successful. Integrity Toys continued to release new Gem dolls. In June of 2017, Integrity Toys decided to expand their Gem collection even more with some brand new dolls, and just 2 months later, in August of 2017, Mattel decided to remake the Barbie and the Rockers line. Again, this may just be a coincidence, but I personally believe that this was a planned attack. There we go, doll fans. We spoke about one of the most infamous feuds in the doll industry. And this video also gave me an opportunity to talk about 2 doll lines that I do really love. Of course, Gem and the Holograms really epitomizes the 80s aesthetic, and Barbie and the Rockers is a classic moment in Barbie history. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to check me out on Instagram and TikTok and watch some more of my videos. And I will see you real soon, doll fans. Bye!